Alright, so Ilia Topuria versus Alexander Volkanovski 2 seems to be one of the next fights at featherweight, and this is a terrible fight that absolutely nobody wants to see, okay? I don't think the UFC should make this fight at all, and I want to talk about why. Let me know if you want to see this fight down below, and while you're down there, I'd appreciate if you could like, subscribe. We're so close to 540 subs. Anyway, let me get into it. Now, although there's been rumors of Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev and Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez, this still seems like it could be the next fight for the featherweight title, because Volkanovski seems pretty set on fighting Ilia next and getting that rematch. Dana White and the UFC have talked about giving Volkanovski his rematch, and on top of that, Ilia Topuria and Volkanovski literally faced off at UFC 308, and that usually doesn't happen unless that fight is going to happen next. But I don't think that this fight should happen. This is a terrible fight with absolutely no hype behind it, okay? There's nobody who wants to see Volkanovski possibly getting brutally KO'd for a third time in a row, and it's not because Volkanovski doesn't deserve the title shot. He obviously deserves it. He was a very dominant champion. He cleared out the division. I don't think losing to Ilia Topuria means that he has to like work his way up back to the title or anything. But when you compare this situation to other champions who've been through similar things, for example, the Adesanya one with Pereira, okay, when Pereira KO'd him, that was a very close fight, and he got KO'd in the 5th round, and it wasn't a brutal KO, okay, he got TKO'd against the fence. It wasn't anything that crazy. You know, Israel Adesanya obviously could come back. Again, it was a close fight. There was still something there against Pereira, and you know, he did end up beating him. He got the KO and he got his belt back. And in Kamaru Usman's case, against Leon Edwards in the second fight, he was winning most of that fight. He was about to 50-45 him until Leon Edwards brutally head kicked him in the last round. Okay, again, that fight was still close. There's still some hope for Kamaru Usman maybe getting his belt back. In the third, you know, he didn't get the belt back, obviously, but still, that was a pretty close fight, even in the third one. But in Volkanovski's case, there really doesn't seem to be much hope. I mean, he's been brutally KO'd. You know, with Islam Makhachev, the guy got head kicked and was getting bounced off Islam's knee, and then Ilia Topuria hit him with the most beautiful combination, knocked him out clean, and not a lot of people are going to be picking Volkanovski to beat Ilia Topuria in a rematch. It's just really not that exciting. There doesn't seem to be much hope for Volkanovski, and it just doesn't really make sense, because if he goes in there and he just gets brutally KO'd by Ilia Topuria again, and I know Ilia Topuria said that he's going to try and submit Volkanovski, but you'd literally have a better chance in beating Shamil Gaziev in a hot dog eating contest than choking out Volkanovski. That's basically impossible, so that's just not going to happen. So Ilia Topuria is most likely going to brutally KO this guy again, and it just doesn't really make any sense, because if Volkanovski now gets KO'd for a third time in a row, that could do some bad damage to his chin, okay? Even with the year off, it could still do irreversible damage to his chin in a pointless fight where he's basically just a lamb to the slaughter, when there's so many other exciting fights for him. For example, like Diego Lopez, or even at lightweight, there's so many exciting fights there. Why not just go there instead of feeding Volkanovski to Ilia for absolutely no reason? But this fight isn't just bad for Volkanovski, it's bad for almost everybody involved, okay? For Ilia Topuria, this fight basically does absolutely nothing for him. He's already beaten Volkanovski. Beating him again really doesn't do anything for his legacy or his career, because it's literally the same Volkanovski he just beat one fight ago. And it's not like he can do it any more impressively the second time, because he's already KO'd him the first time. He would have to go out there and Jorge Masvidal flying knee Volkanovski in the first round, and also somehow submit him. Like, catch him with a flying knee, get him in a guillotine, and then like 50-40 him. Like, that's the only way you could have a more impressive win over Volkanovski. This fight is also just terrible for the featherweight division, because there's so many contenders right now. There's Diego Lopez, there's Movsar Evloev, there's Lerone Murphy's about to get close to a title shot. There's so many other contenders, and they're wasting their time trying to make a Volkanovski rematch that nobody wants to see, and it just wastes the division time, because we've already seen it. Again, Ilia Topuria just KO'd Volkanovski. That was like Volkanovski's last fight. A lot of people just want to see a new person, a new contender fight for the belt, rather than holding up the division for Volkanovski to fight in a fight that we've just seen him get brutally KO'd in. You know, similar to like the John Jones versus Stipe fight, or Dricus du Plessis versus Adesanya. Like, it's just going to hold up the division, and it's just going to make it a whole mess. So if not for that fight, what should the UFC do with the featherweight division? I think that they should make Ilia Topuria versus either Diego Lopez or Movsar Evloev. I don't really know which one they should do, just because I think the UFC wants to give Diego Lopez a title shot before Movsar, even though I think Movsar is like more deserving in my opinion, just because he's beat more guys. On top of that, he beat Diego Lopez not that long ago, so I think Movsar is probably more deserving in my opinion. But at the same time, I understand the case for Diego Lopez too. But Diego Lopez versus Volkanovski seems like a much more exciting fight than Movsar versus Alexander Volkanovski. Like, I don't think anyone would be hyped for Movsar versus Volk. So I think Ilia Topuria versus Diego or Movsar makes the most sense, just because Diego Lopez versus Ilia Topuria would be a very, very entertaining fight. Both those guys basically have the exact same style, except Diego Lopez is just like slightly worse. So I'd be very excited in seeing that matchup. And then the Movsar versus Ilia matchup, that's a very interesting matchup, a very exciting one. Maybe not going to be as entertaining, but it would be cool to see if Movsar can actually beat Ilia Topuria, maybe out wrestle him, or maybe Ilia Topuria just flatline KOs Movsar, and everyone would be happy about that, because for some reason everybody hates Movsar. This guy is so overhated, but still, Ilia versus Movsar is a pretty like exciting fight. So is like Diego Lopez versus Ilia, and then for Volkanovski, I think they should just do whoever doesn't get the title shot, because again, I think those fights, they're not as entertaining. Again, I don't think Movsar versus Volk, I really wouldn't care if that happened, but Diego versus Volk, even though I'm not really that excited for that matchup, I still think that's a decent matchup and people would get hyped for that. So that's what they probably should do. But if Ilia decides to go up to lightweight and, you know, maybe vacates the belt or something, I think they should definitely do Diego Lopez versus Volkanovski, because that's a very exciting fight. But I don't think it's as exciting if it's not for the belt. You know, like stylistically, I don't think this is like the most entertaining fight ever. But I think if it's for the interim belt, that's a very exciting fight. Like, I really would like to see that if it's for the vacant or interim belt. And, you know, for Movsar, I don't know what he does, bro. Movsar is like genuinely cooked. Okay, for some reason the UFC, I was about to say for some reason, but I think it's very obvious why the UFC hates Movsar Evloev. But yeah, I think that's probably what they should do next with featherweight. But I really don't like this fight. I just don't like Volk's future in general right now, okay? It's just really not looking that good, because he just seems to have like the absolute wrong mindset right now. He just wants to fight for the belt, and he just wants to fight for gold and stuff, which I really don't think Volkanovski should have this mindset at the age that he's at. He's like 37 or 36 or something. Like, bro, you have so many exciting fights. Like, you can make so much money of fighting guys at lightweight who are way more exciting fights, way like easier fights too, like very winnable fights. I don't know why you're trying to fight guys who are like half your age. Guys like Ilia Topuria, I think Ilia's like 27 or something. The guy has crazy KO power. You've just been KO'd twice in a row, and for some reason you're still trying to fight these guys. Like, I understand you want the belt. I get the mindset. But at some point, you just have to realize, like, that's just not realistic anymore. And it's just going to be terrible for his career. Because if he gets KO'd again, bro might actually go on, like, a Tony Ferguson level losing streak. Especially when there's, like, guys at lightweight who really aren't going to be KOing this guy in the first round. Like, Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, they aren't going to be KOing Volk, like, immediately when the bell rings, okay? Unlike Diego Lopez and Ilia Topuria, who most likely are going to be able to do that. It just makes no sense to me, and I really don't like seeing Volkanovski just get KO'd over and over again. I really don't want to see that. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. If you really enjoyed that video, consider becoming a member. Happy Valentine's Day to Titano and Cold Art Maker. And yeah, that's going to be it. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe.